Do you struggle with fats and fins and just really poor strike? So I'm going to share with you this drill that is just rocking at the minute. Literally any student I use it with, it just transforms how they hit the ball. And all you're going to need is a pen, an open mind, and to be fair, lots of the movements you're probably already using. Let's make you a more consistent golfer. So I hit two batches of shots that I want to show you here to kick it off, because this is the fault that we need to fix. And I hit with one club where I hit a batch of shots where I de-lofted my club at impact. So this club has a static loft that the manufacturer put on this club, but what you'll find with good players when they hit the ball with irons from the ground is they tend to de-loft the club at impact. Now the big problem we get with lots of amateurs and lots of you watching is when you hit your shots, you add loft. So you take the dynamic loft, the manufacturer's loft of the club, and as you come in and hit the ball, you're in the process of adding loft. And look what that does to my strikes. So you can clearly see from the strike pattern, these are the averages of all the strikes. The yellowy green one is basically where I'm adding loft, and the red one is where I am trying to de-loft my shots. So let's break that down. Ball is on the ground. I am coming in to hit the ball. If you are adding loft, so I'm going to extreme it, you're not actually presenting the face at the ball. You're going to hit the ground first, fats, fins. Where if I take loft off, so this is an exaggeration, but look, the top of the club almost hits the ball first. So I have loads of golfers come for me for lessons who are saying that I can't improve my strike, I'm hitting these fats and fins, generally poor strikes, and they're saying like, but I'm not in the right position here and I'm not in the right position here. Now, I'm going to show you some pitfalls as the video goes on of why you might struggle to do the drill we're just about to do, which honestly is going to transform the way you hit it. But what they're not doing to kick them off is they've got no intention or often even understanding that they're meant to be de-lofting the club as they hit the ball to get those purer, crisper strikes. Pens at the ready. So the drill's as simple as this. I want you to take a pen and just mark right in the middle of the club at the top of the head with your pen. Now I've got a silver dot on here which I use to measure the club. So I'm going to use my silver dot. You can use a pen. And this is going to become a serious focus point of your swing and what you're trying to achieve. So we're going to shift your intention, your priorities to how you hit this ball around this dot. Little point to note, I'm not using the pen indoors as well, because if you do hit the dot and the ink goes on the ball, it starts marking your screen. So if you're using a home sim, do what I'm doing. Put something at the top that isn't going to come off on the ball, because that's an expensive mistake. Now, the goal for all iron shots, and I'm doing this with an 8 iron, so just do it with a medium iron to start, is you've got to try and hit the ball with this dot. So you're actually going to try and feel like you're going to hit the ball more with the dot at the top of your club. Now, obviously where this dot is, being this high on the face, I'm never going to hit it with that bit. And if I do, I've really over-exaggerated and the ball's set up too much on the mat. But for most people who are adding loft as they come in to hit the shot, this exaggeration of trying to hit the dot really helps them understand how they should be de-lofting the club. Now, there's going to be lots of you out there who just going to struggle. You're going to look at that and think, I never can do that. And I'm going to give you a real rundown of all the big pitfalls that stop you doing that, which you can kind of cross off the list as we go on. So basically, as I set up my club now, I'm even setting up with my club, say, an inch or so behind the ball to feel like I need to push it forward to try and get that dot. So if I hit a shot with this club, trying to hit the dot, so that's my pretty standard shot. I'm launching that 8 iron down at 18 degrees. If I do one now where I add loft, and to be fair now, if I'm adding loft, flicking forward, adding wrist angles, I feel like I'm going to hit the bottom grooves a lot more. That one actually caught the bottom and then kind of rolled up the face. I could feel it. It was a decent hit. Because you can still hit good shots, and this is the thing that confuses so many golfers. They think, well, I hit some good and some bad, so I must be doing some good moves and then some bad moves. No, what you find as you measure students is they're very consistent with the dynamic loft generally that they deliver. What does change is that if you're hitting it in a way where you do present the bottom of the club too early and turn that face away from the ball, subject to the millimetres high and low on that face, that ball will hit the bottom of that club and kind of rebound off. It won't skid up and get to the middle. Because when you hit a shot, a ball is basically moving a bit on the face, subject to where you hit it. So you're just getting somewhere the ball's set up a little bit more and you get away from it. You know, you get away with a strike. You get other ones where there's some dampness in the ground, so you get a little bit of a hit slip and then it gets up the face a little bit more. So your inconsistencies are because of the many variations that are out there on the course as you play, just generally day to day. But what we find from golfers who de-loft their irons and their clubs from the ground, so even longer clubs they're doing it. Again, driver you wouldn't be de-lofting, but again, I'll do a full video on how to do it with driver. Let's stick this to clubs from the ground to kick us off. You just see a consistent pattern with good players, you know, low handicappers through to tour players, that no one's adding loft to the dynamic loft. Amateurs, literally it's 70 to 80% of the people I teach are adding loft. It's one of the fundamental differences, and one of the fundamental differences then leads on to where people strike the ball. Now obviously improving your strike, there's many other elements. This isn't just fixes everything. But again, like I said at the start, this tip literally is just rocking golfers at the minute. It's totally transformed. I think it's so much more about changing your understanding of what you're trying to achieve and your intention. My intention is to hit the ball with that dot. Well, that's going to create some very different actions. So all from standard setup positions, don't go and change. The only thing I do a little bit more is get the club a little bit behind the ball, feeling like I can just lean that handle up to it. Hit some. Look at the launch, see if you can get the feeling of hitting with that dot. Now, if you're trying this and it's not working, you can't do it, these are the pitfalls that you need to be checking for. 1, weak grip. Up here in the palm, very weak. Not down here near the base of the fingers. You need to make sure the thumb's down the right of center and you're seeing a good 2-3 knuckles. Let's move away from thumb down the middle, seeing only 1 knuckle. So having a weak grip doesn't mean I can't achieve this. You've got a weak grip and you are, keep doing it. Bryson DeChambeau, weak grip, can do all these things. But for your average golfer, having a weak grip encourages these kind of actions down at the bottom, adding loft kind of actions. The other thing that happens with the weak grip, which is the second point which might make it very hard for you to achieve what we're trying to achieve here, is really weak wrist angles. So from these weak holds, we see these really extended wrist angles as well, which gets the face adding loads of loft. We're trying to de-loft. You're going to find lots of good players at the top of the backswing are actually getting that club pointing this way more than they are more down at the ground, which is a common problem with so many amateurs. Weak wrist angles through weak grips encourage very lofted shots, adding loft, and then in turn, that was a low strike. So let's get that grip 101 in there, and then as you're swinging, let's make sure you are flattening lead wrist with arm. Let's make sure you are using stronger wrist angles on the way back and on the way down. We're trying to de-loft. This action's going to de-loft some. This action's going to de-loft some more. We want them both in there. And then the next one, and this is killer, what happens if you've got the weak grip or you've got the weak wrist angles, or you're adding loft and trying to fight faces that are generally open, so pointing to the right, people generally don't add loft and point the face way left. We start seeing crazy forward ball positions. To try and hit that dot from a ball position up here, I mean, I'm going to have to literally step or travel so far. It's going to be so hard. Crazy forward ball positions, hitting that ground first and catching it on the way up. Again, I'm going to hit. I actually got up the club there because I bounced off the mat, but on the ground that would have been a fat. Because again, mats can be a little bit friendly, which is where often people get tricked with this as well. So good grip, good wrist angles. Let's have a sensible setup. So let's get that ball position, medium iron, somewhere nearer the middle of your stance. What I don't want you to do is pushing the ball way, way back. That's a cheat to try and hit this. I want you to be able to hit this dot near the top of the club ball, feeling like you're going to from a more neutral ball position. So you're doing it with handle leaning the way you're turning. But let's make sure the medium irons that the ball isn't anywhere up towards lead foot. So if you're going to do this drill, let's say with hybrids, again, you don't want them way, way forward. Let's make sure that they are 1 inch or 2 inside that lead heel. You'll be amazed how you can get hybrids subject to the loft you've got hit from near the middle of the stance. And what that does, if it makes that club lean forward, it makes you de-loft those hybrids. And for so many golfers, rather than getting that little thin kind of lifty shot, they start getting these kind of crunchies. Because what happens if we can get you hitting shots from the ground by de-lofting, by using this dot feeling, you're going to win threefold. So what I mean is you're going to win by hitting better strikes, you're going to win by having better launch, and you're going to win by those two. Better strikes with better launch equals better distance. So what we start to see is that you max out the club you're hitting, rather than for lots of golfers, they're hitting it way shorter than the energies that they're putting in. So now that you've got the strike working with that dot on the top of the club, remember that you won't be able to compete with this. There'll be rules, so just wipe it off before you play. Or if you're sticking something on, take it off before you play in competitions. But I'm going to move the drill on, and I'm only going to hit one shot because, again, I don't want to mark my screen. I've basically put my dot now in the middle of that club, and I'm going to make it nice and big, look, but still up the club. Oh, I'm going to regret this. Don't mark the screen, don't mark the screen, don't mark the screen, don't mark the screen. So that dot married that ball, and I was able then to get that ink onto that ball. This is a great way to practice in when you go to the range. Don't tell the range owner, and I'm not telling you. Don't tell them I told you to do this as well. Just mark up the face, get a ball, hit, and see how quickly you can wear that off. If you're hitting your own balls and going and collecting them, see how many of them you're getting that mark onto the ball. This is only the beginning of you hitting better strikes, because obviously there's loads of other elements to this. And I've got an in-depth video on striking and how to avoid the strike killers here that, again, might just push your strikes on to help you lower scores.